The Raptors can't get the job done against the Washington Wizards. 119-108 is the final. Welcome to Raptors Tonight. I'm Randy Urban, joined by Sherman Hamilton, Jack Armstrong, and Paul Jones. Jonesy, just a really tough game tonight if you're a Raptors fan. For you, though, what was the most glaring problem for the Raptors?
We can point to the defense. Washington shoots for the game 51.2%. Hovered around that mark all game, shot 60% as a singular entity in the second quarter. But I think what disappointed me more was there seemed to be a general lack of urgency at times by the Raptors, just not playing with the same jam that we're used to seeing them play with, not for consistent time periods. And it got away from them early. They reeled it back, but I just they made a little bit of a muscle and a push at the end. But to me, as important a game as it was, a chance to get back to 500, creep a little closer to the team in front of you. I was disappointed I didn't see that like I said, that sense of urgency for a more consistent time period.
Mm-hmm. And sure, everybody talked about the Raptors. This was a must-win game, and they got to get both these games, but nobody decided to tell the Washington Wizards. Obviously, they're a team fighting for the same playoff spot that the Raptors are. Were you surprised the same way we all were with just the effort, or how did you take it in?
Well, first of all, it's not like Washington wasn't playing just as good a brand of basketball from a record perspective as the Raptors were coming into this game. So I'm not surprised that the Wizards played that well. I think, to Jonesy's point, the shocking thing is that the Wizards maintained their level and the Raptors weren't able to maintain their level. We're used to seeing the Raptors in a typical game like that. They're down 15, 16 points in the fourth quarter, and they started to do what they do. They made that comeback, made that push, but it was poor execution at certain moments that cost them late in the game. One comes to mind, great ball movement. OG has a wide open three-point shot. He tries to dump it down to Jakob Poeltl, throws it out of bounds. Huge possession right there in a close game. So it was surprising at the errors, I'd say, that the Raptors made down the stretch. But I'm not surprised at the Wizards because they've been playing some good basketball coming into this game.
And Jack, when you were watching, what did you make of the defensive struggles? It looked a little bit too easy for the Wizards. So what was behind that defensive breakdowns or those defensive breakdowns?
I think this team lets its offense affect its defense. And I think their personality comes more from that. So that concerns you a little bit. Obviously, you're gonna particularly when you're on the road, your offense and your shooting in particular, we saw that when they missed the first 10 shots and they had to call the first timeout. But whatever happened on one end shouldn't affect you on the other. And obviously it did. They gave up some opportunities going to the basket in terms of protecting the paint. So those are considerations. And I think, Sherman, you said it, the Raptors do what they do, like they fight back. But I think the first quarter is pretty important, and I think sometimes certain teams are more comfortable when they play from behind. And I think, obviously the sense of urgency, Jonesy, you mentioned it earlier, it's got to be there right from the beginning. I mean, this is a critical game. And one of the observation I have is when I watch them, now Nick Nurse is trying to incorporate 10 guys. And you could clearly see Gary Trent struggling. You could clearly see Precious Achiuwa is struggling. And, there is concern for, what's my role? Where are my shots coming from? And there were just a number of possessions sometimes that they looked like they were disjointed. And then other times where they looked brilliant, where the ball moved great. So I think that's the challenge right now is you still have guys trying to work through, hey, what's my role? Where are my shots coming from? And sometimes the ball sticks a little bit. And, they gotta work through that. Because I'd say, when you look at the Wizards tonight, that ball flew around when it needed to.
Jonesy, in regards to Kyle Kuzma, 30 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, tough to contain for Scotty tonight. What do you think he could have done to maybe limit him a little bit more?
Well, Kuzma is one of those guys. I think once the genie's out of the bottle, it's tough to put it back in. He's a guy who, once he gets confident and he feels he can do whatever he wants, he operates off that principle. I mean, he scored the first 10 points on 4 of 4 threes, a couple of threes in there, a couple of easy buckets on drives, and now you're trying to run that horse down. I just think he looked at the Raptors defense at times and said, you know what, I can get what I want. I'm going to do what I want. And that was something I watched this game looking at, thinking about, we got the news today about LeBron James. It's a tendon injury and he'll be out for 3 weeks. And I thought, the Lakers are making a push. Wouldn't they love to have Kyle Kuzma, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, like, Montrezl Harrell, the guys that they traded to Washington back right now? Because I look at, Pope, Caldwell-Pope, Raptors will see him on Monday in Denver, good minutes. And Kuzma gave Washington great minutes tonight. He's arguably one of their big three with Porzingis and Beal. And I thought he was the headliner tonight, Kyle Kuzma.
And Sherman, you talked about the zone defense in the broadcast there. Why was it giving the Raptors so much trouble? Because when I see a zone defense, I'm like, all right, great, more open shots.
Maybe they need to fly you out to Washington. Is that what you're saying? I don't know. I don't get that.
I mean, they could.
I'll say this. It's not going to help. But I'll say this. It was uncharacteristic of the Raptors to struggle against a zone like that, especially when they had multiple possessions to figure it out. I was surprised that zone was that effective for the Wizards. And, it wasn't the confusion turnovers. It was just decision-making turnovers, just, making a bad pass and not really committing to hard cuts in the zone. And very few times did we see enough of that, either dribble penetration into the guts of the zone or the pass to penetrate the guts of the zone to really condense it to create better looks. So it kind of had me shaking my head, the fact that the Raptors were that ineffective against the zone, because they've definitely played better against zone defenses.
And Jonesy, it seemed like every time they got Pirtle involved in the half-court offense, something good came from that. Is this just a matter of doing that more, or how do you sort of work through that?
Well, I think that's a great point. You get him more touches and allow him to kind of roam a little bit. He's pretty good as the roller on the hard roll and scoring. But, I mean, some of the other guys need to be able to do their thing too. Scotty had a couple of chippies inside. There was one time he had, I don't know if it was Beal or DeLon right on him and he went to work. Those are the things that to kind of diversify the offense. So it's not always Jakob Pirtle. The other guys need to come to the party.
Jack, from a Porzingis, if you're a Porzingis fan, I think you're happy with his play in Washington. It seems like his career has been revitalized.
Well, this is a better market for him. I think that obviously New York got a little crazy. Dallas, I don't know, that sometimes there's a lot of, frustration playing there and just expectation. I think they had higher hopes. I think they hyped him up to a point where I think it wasn't realistic what he could do for them. He's a really good second guy. He's not a superstar. You look at Gafford, he played well tonight. I mean, Beal was a non-factor most of the night. I thought DeLon Wright played great tonight, just really running his team with a season-high 11 assists. But Porzingis, to me, when he stays in his lane and he'll take his open threes and he takes advantage of opportunities around the basket, and he can protect the rim, he's a very good player. But he's a jump shooting big man, and but this team is kind of a good fit for him. And I thought they played. I thought they played hard. They moved. They got the ball up the court quickly. And bottom line is they outshot the Raptors from three. And they played a cleaner game.
Well, Sherman, I'll ask all of you guys this in one sentence. What do you think is the one thing the Raptors need to do against the Wizards on Saturday to change the fortunes here?
Get off to a better start. It all started in that first quarter. They've got to be better out the gates against this Washington team to create confidence for them and extract some of the confidence that we saw from Washington in the early minutes of that first quarter.
Jonesy?
Play with more urgency consistently. We saw it for flashes when they got punched in the mouth and down 10-0 in the first quarter. They came back and took the lead. We saw it in some of the desperate straits of the fourth quarter, but you play with that kind of urgency and intensity over the course of, even if you don't do it for 48 minutes, if you do it for 40 or 45, you're going to be in far better standing than you are, when you just try to turn it on in spurts.
And Jack, if you're a Raptors fan and you said you got to get the first two, well, you definitely got to get the second one.
Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam need to play to the level we know they can play at. Those guys are big pieces of your organizational investment. They're a big part of it. And, you're trying to determine where this organization is going to go in the offseason. They're a big part of the decision-making of what's the next step. And, in games like this that are, pretty critical in terms of where you're going to go the rest of the season, those guys need to be at their best.
Yeah, so another one against Washington, and then they've got Denver, Sherman, and then two in LA against the Lakers and the Clippers. But real quick before we go, I just want to ask you guys, the Mavs 1-4, look to be 2-4 after tonight. They're probably going to get a win against Philadelphia with Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving playing together. As a fan of basketball in general, what frustrates you when you look at that team and the lack of success that they've had so far?
Nothing really. I mean, the Dallas Mavericks didn't get better defensively with that move that they made for Kyrie Irving. So, it's got to be a shootout every night. They've got to outscore teams, and the stops are going to be far and few between. So it's a tough road to hoe when you're trying to do it that way. But this is what Dallas has decided to do. So they're going to need their superstars and Kyrie and Luka to carry this offensive load every single night and really turn it into a shoot 'em up in the streets and put a lot of points on the board, because the stops are more difficult without the guys that they don't have on that roster anymore.
Jonesy?
I'm waiting for them to figure it out. I am. Sherman's point is well taken about them not getting better defensively, but there's a part of me as a basketball purist that sees that with the rules change and the way the games are being officiated, the premiums on offense and defense has been, devalued in a sense in the NBA. Even, we talk about, the MVP awards and some of these awards, they're all offensive awards. That's where it skews and it trends towards the offense. So in seeing that and doing that, I look at two of the great offensive players in the NBA on the same team, Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic, and I'm just waiting for them to kind of figure it out. And they may not figure it out, Randall. It might be your turn, my turn, your turn, my turn, all the way into the playoffs, or as far as they can go. So they may not figure it out. It's tough to do. They may just play that way the rest of the year.
All right, guys, going to stop you there. Raptors finish up this mini 2-game series against the Wizards on Saturday. Tip-off goes a bit earlier at 5 p.m. Eastern. And don't forget, after the game, be sure to catch Raptors Tonight on the Raptors YouTube channel and NBA TV Canada. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.